Growth doesn't stall at 5 million because founders get lazy. It stalls because something changes internally and almost no one recognizes it. If you're scaling past $5 million and growth has quietly flattened, this is for you. Not because your strategy is broken, but because strategy stops compounding when the operator slows down. And most founders never realize they've slowed. For the last several years, I've worked with founders and CEOs scaling between $5 million and $50 million. Operators with strong strategy, solid teams, and real traction. But who knew they weren't operating as sharply as they once did? Revenue wasn't collapsing, but growth wasn't compounding. The issue wasn't tactical. It was internal interference. There's a pattern I see repeatedly in capable, disciplined founders. Growth weakens, momentum dulls, and expansion takes more effort than it used to. And the default assumption is we need better marketing, better systems, better execution, better mindset. Most of the time, that's not the constraint. The real constraint is something I call performance drag. Performance drag is accumulated, unresolved stress that makes capable founders operate below capacity, resulting in slower decisions and lost revenue. It's not burnout, it's not panic, it's not dysfunction. It's subtle internal load that changes how you operate, and it happens quietly. In early growth, stress sharpens you. Deadlines, hiring risk, cash flow swings. Stress spikes, but then it resolves. But as you scale, the spikes stop resolving. Responsibility increases, complexity increases, the weight of decisions increases, and stress accumulates. Not dramatically, incrementally. And when accumulated stress becomes baseline, your operating state changes even if nothing looks wrong on paper. Here's how it shows up. Decisions take slightly longer. High impact conversations get postponed. You run more internal scenarios before committing. You need more recovery for the same effort output, and your tolerance and patience drops. You still know what to do, but execution feels harder. At 5 million plus, small slowdowns compound. A 5% delay in decision velocity affects hiring timing, capital deployment, opportunity capture, and strategic risk tolerance. Revenue doesn't collapse, it simply stops compounding. And that's the danger. Now, here's what most founders were never taught. Emotion fires before thought. On average, emotional signaling activates 350 milliseconds before conscious thought. So your nervous system decides safe or unsafe, expand or protect, push or conserve before logic kicks in. So if your baseline nervous system state is elevated from accumulated stress, your thinking will adapt to that elevation. You become slightly more protective, more cautious, more mentally loaded. Not because you've lost your edge, but because biology always wins. And when founders try to fix this by pushing harder, well, force layered on top of internal load is interpreted as threat by your body. And threat chemistry will always narrow cognition, reduce pattern recognition, slow decisions, and increase fatigue. That's why discipline eventually feels heavier. Not because you're weaker, but because you're operating with interference. This is also why strategy stops fixing the problem. Now, mindset operates at the level of thought, but performance drag exists at the level of emotional patterning in the nervous system. You cannot outthink or out-mindset nervous system activation. Sure, you can override it temporarily, but overriding consumes energy, and energy drain kills compounding. One founder I worked with had been in business for over 25 years. He was a strong operator, had stable revenue, a very experienced team. He wasn't burned out, but growth had flattened for 2 years. And he said, "Rochelle, I'm working just as hard, but it's not expanding the way it used to." We identified clear performance drag patterns, accumulated pressure from years of responsibility and decision load, and we removed them. That year became the highest revenue year in his 25-year history. No new strategy, no rebrand, no pivot. Decision speed increased, risk tolerance normalized, and execution lightened. And then compounding returned. That's what happens when interference is removed instead of managed. If growth has quietly stopped compounding and you've already optimized all the external levels, the constraint may not be external. Now, most founders assume more strategy will fix it, more force will fix it, more discipline will fix it. And sometimes it does, but most often it doesn't. Because force applied on top of interference just slows you down further. If this resonates, there's a Founder Diagnostic link below. If it doesn't, no big deal, that's fine. But if it does and you ignore it, that's expensive. Compounding doesn't pause politely. It erodes your business quietly.